Yo, what's up, man? It is your boy CD Rome, back with another live episode of Watch Your Narrative, coming live to you from an undisclosed narrative location. Today is draft day, ladies and gentlemen. Today is draft day. So hope you guys are, getting your fits ready. Hope you guys are getting your speeches prepared. Hope you captains are ready to make a decision that will affect your reputation and also will affect your season. So, what they say, steady long, steady wrong. So make sure you steady long. I think that most people have figured out the directions that they want to go. So let's talk about it. This episode will be not a mock draft. I've done that before. We've done the mock draft. The mock draft has kind of went up and down. Every mock draft I put out there, they say has been poo, as they say. But every time I ask for, just a little bit of you know, what do you think? Feedback, I get nothing. I get nothing. So that's okay. That's okay. If you don't have any ideas or thoughts, don't worry about it. I appreciate Cognac putting out his particular mock draft. I also appreciate Cognac adding a little bit more layer to it with his take on the best backcourt, best front court. Maybe an idea he stole from me. I don't know. Who cares? But either way, as I sit here in my very lovely jacket, I am going to today do a almost like a fantasy. We're thinking about this is a draft, right? This is a draft, a snake draft. You got captains that are trying to make a selection here. So what I'm going to do a little bit different here. Instead of doing a mock draft, I'm going to do best in position. So we're going to focus on our point guards that run the show. We're also going to look at our two guard, our 3 and D. We're going to look at our wing. We're going to look at the PF position, and then we're going to look at the big man role and talk about what in this particular 2K of what you need and who can supply that. And we're going to go down and we're going to break down player, not necessarily every player. So I apologize if I do not get to you specifically. Number one, if I have not seen you play as much, that's going to factor it in a little bit. And then also too, just because of time's sake, I just may not get to you specifically, but you know what you provide and what you offer to these captains. So I'm going to start with the captains first. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with Yodi first, defending champion. May I add Yodi, two-time champion at this point. To me, he has the hardest spot. Some people say he has the best spot. I strongly disagree with that. We all know where Keyshawn is going, right? It's well documented. Um, Bryant has now disclosed where he's going. Austin has not revealed his card yet, at least from what I'm hearing, I haven't heard him reveal his card yet. But him wanting to play center and it would make the most sense to go with what I had in the mock. You would think Cody would go with, Terrence, but then Yodi is the one that it gets to him and you're like, he has religiously stated that he wants to go center, big, 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 because he's going to run the point. So of course there were a few mock drafts that I did complete. One that had Chris as the draftee, and then another one that had Hunter as the draftee. And so of course there was some, definitely some feedback to that. That we'll give a little bit more reasoning behind that here shortly. So Yodi has a very, very hard decision to make, not only because he could go big and he could go power forward. We could see a Hunter Chris collab because Hunter does have a power forward. So you could easily see that. But we'll see. We'll see. Draft is tonight, coming soon. We'll see what happens. Then also you have Cody who, narrative pipelines I hear. I hear a little bit of Martin there. Of course, Terrence is a foregone conclusion that he wants to play with him. Will he get him? Who knows? Because Austin could very well, grab Terrence, and then that would throw off his particular draft. So we'll see what happens. Very interesting for Cody as well. Austin will hold the key to what Cody is able to do or which route he takes in the draft. And then Austin, of course, poker player himself, keeps everything pretty tight to the vest. I'm sure he pretty much knows the route that he wants to go, but with him, it could change at any point. It would seem, because he plays so many various roles. So he could play, yes, I'm gonna play big, but man, you know what? I'm gonna play point. You know what? I may bring a new build that by this time I'm sure most people have seen. Ben Simmons, so who knows? And then of course, the two that we know for sure, that they've been pretty open about, Keyshawn and Brian. We know who their first two picks are. So without further ado, guys, let's get into this. Where do we start? I would like to start with the guy that runs the show, the point guard. The point guard. Now, let's make sure I say this before I get started. This is just the opinion of Watch Your Narrative. This is just the opinion of CD-ROM. I just want to make sure that I mention as well that I am not on the level of these guys. Okay, so I'm nowhere near the talent that these guys provide. I'm just a lowly undrafted guy. All right, but because of my lowly undrafted status, I can provide without a shadow of a doubt my opinion without any worry of any, kickback, or, some people be a little afraid to say what they want to say and say how they bitch, because I may want to play with that guy. Well, you know what? I'm not playing with anybody. So I'm gonna say what I say. And of course it's going to be encouraging, it's going to be loving, but it's also going to be truthful. All right. So the number one, and I'm speaking this to the captains, right? I'm speaking to the captains. Once again, who am I? Well, hey, I'm just a lowly guy, okay? I know a little bit about basketball, though. I mean, I know a little bit about it. So hopefully, two-time champ. I've been a captain myself that won. So hopefully we can, you trust me when I say this. So for me, with my eyes, my own two eyes were the people that I've played with, the people I've seen in different games, whether it's Proving Grounds or it's Five, it's Rec, everything. All right. To me, at this particular moment on the day of the draft, I know who's going number one, but to me, if we're talking about the number one point guard right now, I'm going to go with Jonte. And let me tell you why. And this is not even a one, this is a 1A, 1B. Because my next point is Petty, and that will be 1B. And the only reason that I would separate the two by A and B is because Jonte is a proven entity at the point. He's ran the show on a multiple championship teams. And I cannot disregard that, regardless of what 2K looks like at this moment, regardless of the fact that I feel at this particular moment, I feel Petty is a little bit better at this point, right? Jonte made the statement that, hey, if you're going to get me, you better get me now while I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And I think everybody's still trying to figure it out. Petty, I've seen, three hunting, knocking shots down, very similar to, Prime Jonte. But then also the other side of the coin, of course, is he's dotting up as well, making the right reads, making the right decisions, low turnover rate. So me personally, I've been very, very impressed. So if I'm a captain, for sure, and like I said before, I think with Ajante right now, I would say he is very high volume at this moment. And that's once again going back to the beginning of trying to figure this thing out. This new 2K, this new shooting, this rhythm shooting. Shooting percentages are not going to be great anyway. So we're long ways away from the 70% shooting that we're accustomed to from a player of his magnitude. But what I would say, 1A, Ajante, pros for this guy, championship DNA, very competitive, going to make the right decision. Everybody before last season questioned his point guard. And I literally, as soon as he won, I said, I will not allow anybody to question Ajante's ability to run the show again. Because not only did he run the show, he always made the right pass, the right read. There was games where JP had, the, fourth, fifth guy had 20 points or had 10, 12 shots. And he only had 4 or 5, but he had 15 assists. Just making the right reads, man. So to me, even though we're in a different 2K and it's a little bit different, I got to give him the slight edge just because of the championship DNA he's proven. Now, 1B Petty, pros for selecting this guy. Of course, you got another 3-point hunter. You got a guy that can play with any big, whether he's a pick and roll big, a pick and pop big, post up big. He is not one of those guys that are super ball dominant either. Also very low turnover rate. So, and just high IQ. I mean, high IQ. I've always said that Petty's been one of my favorite points, even before, everybody that's came in knows him as a center, but I played with Petty as a point where in a game where he had 20 assists easy, no turnovers. So the guy has just a feel for the game like no other. Also a proven champion as well, but at the center position. But I'm actually quite interested to see, can he run the show as the point and and do something that only, at this point Kyle has done. Um After that, we're gonna say 2, and this is once again just my, you know, personal opinion. So don't, and let me make sure I say this as well. I'm only considering guys who are getting drafted. So make sure I say that. So, Yo, Austin, they're not on the table here when I'm making these considerations. I'm only talking about guys that are on the draft board that could possibly run point. So my next person, and at this point, I'm also not going to consider Terrence, who has, very adamantly said that he does not want to run point guard, and he's not running point guard. Hey, that may change when he gets drafted. Who knows? But I'm not going to consider him either. I'm going to consider my number 2 after 1A and 1B. I'm going to say Robbie. Um, pros for this guy. Once again, championship DNA. All right. Like his very first title, he ran the point guard. I think people forget that. And there is a strong possibility that he could have the same center that he had when he won said championship as well. So watch out for real. Like, say what you want to say. Regardless of what you think. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Not too many people say that can say that they won a championship as a high level point guard, and also wasn't just a point guard. Vying for Finals MVP right there with Kyle. So be very respectful. And also knockdown shooter. Played with him, knockdown shooter. Can shoot the 3, can get to the mid, can dunk on you. Also, he's also getting a multitude of assists. Like say what you want to say once again, but the narrative that whatever you want to bring out, I'm just going off of what I'm seeing. Pros to me, as I mentioned, the shooting, the scoring, the championship DNA, and then also to the ability, you know, and I give him a lot of growth in this area, because he wasn't that when he first stumbled upon we started the league, but I mean, a leader. I hear, if you listen to his role in the league, always lifting guys up. Hey, keep shooting. Don't worry about that next play. Don't worry about that. Let's see the stop. So people don't give that consideration until they're playing with a guy who's what I like to call a front runner, a guy that when they get down, they get tight, they get frustrated. That's when you realize, like, man, I can appreciate a guy who's gonna always uplift the team to keep the team morale high. Pro. Now I'm gonna get to cons. Um, does he go up with bad attempts? Yes. Does he, you know, run down the lane and try to dunk on people when he probably shouldn't? This 2K. Yes, those are the cons to getting a player like Robbie. Also, turnovers. Will that be an issue? Will that be a problem with the way that the lanes are there? Will he see the floor, the floor the way he needs to see the floor? These are all questions. I'm not gonna say they're cons, but these are questions that if you are a captain, you have to ask. I'm just keeping it real there. All those positives, nobody's perfect. There's gonna be cons there with that player. But other than that, I mean, I think that number two, or we'll say third player behind those the other two that I mentioned, I think that's your best pick at point guard. After that, we have other points. I'm not going to get heavily into these particular point guards, but you have James, who I've been able to run with quite a bit. I think and is an excellent combo guard, and excellent, you know, can see the floor. The only con I would say for James, if he, you know, if you decide to draft him as a point out of all those other points, you know, outside of Petty as well. You know, James is a champion. Let's make sure I mention that. And when he did win a championship, he was kind of running that combo guard. You had Lion and him that kind of shared that role, and that to me has always been when he's been the most successful, is when he has another guy that's there to help relieve the stress, the pressure of trying to get 15 to 16 assists, or make sure everyone's involved. Because then that way, James can also be an excellent, you know, shooter as well. Can get to the rim now, and he is aggressive dunking. Probably one of the ones I've seen do it the most with contact. So yeah, you need that side of him as well. You don't need him to be solely trying to get others involved. Trust me, our first year of Bad Boys, he was trying to do that. And as soon as I told him, hey, I need you to go and play and get you a bucket, that's when we started winning. Because then he wasn't necessarily concerned with trying to make sure everybody ate. He just made the right basketball play. And as long as he's doing that, he's good. All right. I'm going to move on for point guards. I'm going to go to the shooting guards and make sure I recap here with the point guards. Best person to pick, Ajante, championship DNA. 2, Petty. 1B, really. After that, Robbie, Petty. I'm sorry, not Robbie, Petty. Robbie, James. And I apologize. I just saw this name, but George as well. My apologies for, you know, I'm not going to put him and James in whatever order, but they're both very good, serviceable point guards that to me can have run the show before. But I also think that both of them, it would be, if you're going to do that, I feel like you need someone else to just alleviate the pressure just a little bit. Now, let's go to our shooting guard, our 3 and Ds. What are we looking like with these 3 and Ds, man? You know what? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lump in. I'm just gonna say wings, because there's not a lot of 2s that I'm gonna sit here and, you know, and go 1 through 5 on. But I'm just gonna say wing players. Wing players. So at the top of the the list of wing players. And when I say wings, I'm talking the 2 and the 3. The 2 and the 3. I personally feel, despite what my mock may be, is if you're going to, and this depends upon, and I make sure I say this as well, this depends upon what you're looking for as a captain. What are you wanting to draft? So because this is probably going to be a 1A, 1B as well type situation. This may be 1B, A, B, and C. But number one, I'm going to say Greg. He's going to smile at this point. But, and the reason being is because of the multitude of things that he can do. Yes, we know he can score, he can shoot, he can go get a bucket, post fade, get into the lane, dunk, fast break, lob action, and assist, rebound, and also rebound. Like play the game with him, and of course, I hated to be on the other side of that, that beating, but he had a game, well, I don't know, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, or 7 assists, 10 rebounds. I mean, or 10 assists, 7 rebounds. I can't remember, but either way, 26, 10 to 7, that's a crazy stat line. And very efficiently at it as well. Knows the jump shot in a game where jump shots are very difficult to shoot. But from the offensive side of things, I mean, I'm just being honest, there's nothing that he cannot do. So pro-wise, I mean, I could go on down the line. And then also not a slouch on defense, blocking shots. I mean, truly looking like Bron. Now, the other side of the con part of this, yeah, of course, I gotta put the cons out there. And honestly, some of these things goes without saying. Team morale, can he keep team morale high when things are not going great? At this particular moment, the narrative for him is, can he win with his style of play? Yes, he's won before with only 20 players in the league, and some of those players being Denzel and other guys, that were, the talent was different. We'll put it that way. So now, in modern day 2K, we have a lot of different talented individuals that can do very similar things to Greg, but can he either develop a need or desire to play a role, to lessen his role, to be maybe a complementary player? I don't know. But that's the con side of it, where if you're drafting him, you basically, it's just like getting LeBron James. If you get him, you have to then surround your team, or draft the rest of your team around him, just because of he needs the ball more. And yes, he's gonna say, I can play off ball. Yes, he can play off ball as well, but that off ball is still going to be 10 to 12 shot attempts. And if it's not, that's where the con side comes out at, is, will he be happy? Especially if you're losing, will he be happy? Especially, so that's the con side of Greg, and I'll leave it there. After that, I'm gonna say, oh man, I'm gonna go with where I really want to go. I'm gonna go with Cognac. Cognac has, came back off vacation, number one, feeling good. I think he went to Punta Cana. He's treated him well. He's came back, locked in. Maybe a little bit of the mock draft is kind of, driven a little bit, but either way, it's work, man. To me, one of the top rhythm shooters. I want to say the best rhythm shooter I've seen, but it's very close. So let's talk about it. So pro wise, this is a guy that has, had deep playoff runs. He's played various amounts of roles. He also has a center that will be added to his list as well. But coming in, just thinking about the wing, knockdown shooter, fade, post. I mean, has a floater. I mean, just a deep scoring bag. A very, very deep scoring bag. To Greg's Braun, some people be mad at me. I'm gonna say KD, but you just have to. And the great thing is with him as well is that he's not going to beg for the ball, right? He's gonna come in, fit in whatever style of play you want to play. And only time you'll really hear much out of him is if things are not working, then he's going to ask you, hey, what else can we do? Which to me, that's the type of player that you want on your team anyway. A person that's willing to do whatever it needs to do, whether it's stepping up and saying, I got you, let me go get a bucket, or just saying, you know what, I'm gonna go sit in this corner. If they help, I'm splatted. So I think, for him as a wing player, one of the top wing players, the con side of things for him would be, and this is not trying to follow a narrative. I've played with him on multiple teams. If things don't go well, he's not nearly as bad as others. But I think if it's any other player that's a competitor, you want to win. So if things aren't going well, he will ask questions. He will, push you a little bit. As I mentioned, not bad, but to some may be a con. To me, as a captain, because I've been on the other side of those text messages of like, what you gonna do? And I didn't mind it because I just knew that this guy is driven, ready for a championship. So really and truly, not a lot of cons. I mean, opinionated personality, just like even myself, that would probably be a con for most captains for me. But it's, other than that, I mean, really, really good player. After that, it's not even, it's pretty easy for me to go here. Next wing would be Martin. And I'm gonna say Martin because, and I'm not gonna be long-winded with this guy, but I'm just gonna say knockdown shooter when he's locked in, and one of the better 3-and-D guys that you're going to pick up in this particular draft. And cons are the cons. I mean, we know the personality of Martin. We know he is a little bit younger, a little wet behind the ears. So some of the things that come out of his mouth may be, he's going to speak his mind. Very competitive guy as well. But the cons are the cons. I mean, once again, as a league, I don't feel like some people, I just don't got to go too deeply in detail, but haven't played with them from if you're down, how does that go? But decision making can be a little bit questionable. Shot taking can be a little bit questionable, even though he can make most of those shots he takes. This 2K, because of the fact that you're not shooting, 70%, and he could easily probably shoot 55% just off of taking smart shots. But instead, I'm sure that it may not be that particularly high for his, at least not in that 50 range. So, but other than that, I mean, this guy is, to me, from a 2-guard wing position, one of the better ones. A name I failed to mention, and I apologize. He's gonna say, wait a minute, Terrence. And if I'm plugging Terrence anywhere at this point, I'm gonna plug him right at the 3 spot right before Martin. I feel like if I'm comparing him to Cognac has this rhythm shooting down pack, and I know everybody's like, people get so caught up and drawn up in names and not watching the game. Terrence at this point is still trying to figure it out. The same way that Ajante is still not even reached the Super Saiyan 3 level yet. Terrence is getting there as well. But as far as the pros to this player, we're talking about a championship player, very, very top of the level IQ. It's going to hit shots, it's going to rebound, is going to make the right read. That's the biggest thing, making the right play. Doesn't want to play the point this year. I feel like depending upon the team, he will. But from a wing perspective, he's going to play defense, going to be in the lanes, whether it's Brandon Ingram or whoever, whatever player he decides to go with, whatever the team needs, he's going to also do that as well. He's going to play whatever field you need him to play on. So outside of, Greg, outside of Cognac, I think this is your best route. Now on my mock draft, however, I do have Terrence going in the first round. That's due to the fact that's way different than what I'm speaking on here, but because of relationships, because of play style, that's the reason why I feel like, he'll go, to the first round compared to those other names that I mentioned. Now, let's keep moving on. Another wing player. I'm not going to go all the way down the list, but these are going to be honorable mentions here, right? These are going to be honorable mentions that I feel like are really, really good pickups for any player. Number one honorable mention is Neal, 3-and-D, rebounding, lane steals in a game where lane steals are so important. We're talking about one of the better defensive reads in the game. So this guy should have been a cornerback, but he's in the lanes and knocked down three guy at this point, hitting his shots. So definitely look out for this guy. The other one is Twiz, another honorable mention. Really wowed me playing with him the other night. Had 7 steals, 76 3 ball, knocking it down, cashing it, shooting better than guys that I see with 85 3 balls. So of course, the con would be he has that same, thing that I have going on sometimes, willingness to pull. But other than that, like he knockdown shooter, 3-and-D guy. JP, another one, knockdown shooter. Also another guy that because of playing, because of his IQ, can play defense as well on pretty much any style of defense that you need him to play. And once again, in a game that shooting is not great, you need a knockdown shooter like a JP. Let's move forward. Power forwards. Number one power forward. And in my personal opinion, I don't think it's even close. Phil. If you are looking for a PF, if you're looking for a traditional PF that is going to, number one, rebound in a game that you really need rebounding. Number two, be the glue guy that is going to rotate, block shots, play defense, then this is the guy that you want. And that's before I even get to the offensive side of things from a PF standpoint, because really a PF to me is that glue, that guy that in-between filler that can play multitude of roles, catch the roll guy, can just rotate over when need to rotating, and then of course be a knockdown shooter and knows when to pick and roll, pick and pop, whatever. That's his field. Is whatever you need as a power forward in a game that, as I'm looking through these lists, some of these people have power forwards, but there's not a lot of PFs traditionally that are on this particular list that I'm seeing. So Hunter has a PF. But at this moment, I'm going to consider him. I'm going to place him into the big rim. Neal, also, his is a small forward that really, to me, can play PF, but I don't know if he has the rebounding to go alongside or battle with Phil. Then the other person right after that, to me, would be B. Ross. So right after Phil, to me, from a PF standpoint, a guy that's going to play that role the way that traditionally a PF needs to be played. And once again, we're not considering the guys that are actually captains like Keyshawn, but we are just speaking generally on the guys that we're looking at from a draft standpoint. B. Ross is right there in the mix, going to play the same role. Does not want to play center this year, which I can understand that. And I didn't put him in the wing position because I feel like from my perspective, I think that B. Ross would be an excellent power forward for anyone So not a lot of power forwards, as I mentioned. I'm not going to go into my own tooting of my own horn. I'm just going to leave it there. And next is the big man. Last, the big man. All right, Chris, ready? You know, hope you're ready. Okay. All right. So to me, and I'm not gonna. So to me, I think that what my mock is going to say will be different than what I'm going to say best to draft. But I'm going to give you reasons behind it. Number one, best center to draft, Kyle. Come on. Who else I was going to say? I mean, it's Kyle. Two-time champion at that spot. First time winning championship as a center, more of a scoring, assisting, more of that Jokic role. And the second time, more of a pick and roller, rebounder, and just a defensive stopper. So played multitude of roles as a center. Also, of course, won a championship as a point guard as well. Pros is the pros. Very smart guy. And the cons are not a lot. If I'm just being completely honest, you know, it's not a lot. So that's why to me, he'll be, you know, chosen second by Bryant, unless he decides to change his mind there. Next, as I mentioned before, I'm not gonna throw Petty into this, you know, but to me, the next best center overall would be Chris, and this is why. To me, and the reason why he's lower on the mock is the con side of what comes with him. But the pro side of it is dominant. We've talked about this before. To me, there's three centers, three bigs that to me are, from a proven standpoint, if I'm making a Mount Rushmore of bigs, I'm throwing these three names on there, and I have a struggle finding my fourth, and that would be Kyle, Petty, Chris. You got to put his name in there. We talk about Kyle Petty. This guy is won a championship twice as well. Both of those times, one is a power forward, but still playing a big role. And then of course, as a big, always has been a very dominant big, post bag at this point. Not necessarily, I haven't seen him hit a lot of fadeaways yet, but he has the midi, he has the three, he rebounds with alongside with the Kyles and the Austins of the world, block shots, rotates, everything you need from a big man standpoint, from just an on court, just playing standpoint. The con with him would be very similar. No, I ain't gonna say similar, but to me, the need to have the ball. So, and I'm only saying that's a con because once again, the same as Greg, if you grab Chris, you have to then, unless which he's done it before, unless he's willing to buy into lesser shots, he's gonna want 10 touches a game. He says it in joke and jest, but he really wants 10 touches a game, especially if you're losing. He's another one like Cognac that if you're losing, you'll get those text messages on the side to say, hey, what's going on? What are we gonna do? The other side of it is that not everybody can take that. So you have to then consider your other draft choices when you are picking him. But great player nonetheless. The pros to me outweigh the cons, but you do have to consider the cons. After that, listen, I seen some last night, man. I'm gonna say A and B with this. This is what I'm gonna say: 3A, 3B, and that is Uzi and Hunter. Because Hunter is gonna knock down shots. Guess who else is gonna knock down shots? Uzi. But what's different is that Uzi's build is more offensively prepared to hold a weight. Me personally, I love having the option to have a big that can also, when I just need to say, hey man, listen, I need a bucket. Like, we're shooting threes, they're not dropping. Can you go to the post and give me a high percentage shot? Uzi can do it. So that's the one additive that Hunter does not have, but a knockdown shooter Hunter is, a rebounder Hunter is, a defensive player Hunter is, a willing, gonna play the role that he needs to play. Just a very more than solid big, and his big is made for, has a 96 O board. Big is definitely made for league style play. And with Uzi, his big can play league style play as well, but it's definitely centered towards being able to get a bucket when need be. And I mean, if your team sees value in that, then I would highly consider picking him after those other names I mentioned. After that, there's other centers that are not going to play center. You got George, that has made a center, but one of those guys that can play multiple roles, that very well possible to me, when we talk about the +1 build, could play a complete different role than point guard or center. We'll see what happens. Another center to mention, B. Ross, who also said he didn't want to play center. So, I mean, I don't know. Braxton has a center. Haven't seen him much. Not even sure if he's playing full time, if I'm being honest. So definitely a multitude of big men there, and a lot of options for a lot of captains. And as I mentioned before, I look forward to the draft tonight. A lot of people, talk about the mock, and they're like, "Oh, this is a terrible mock." Well, let's see what happens come draft time. Let's really see what happens comes draft time. Probably in a little bit here, you'll see my final mock come out today, right before the draft, and that will be my final calculation of whatever the mock is. With captains, I just, happy sellings to you. That's all I can say, because you guys have very, very tough decisions to make, considering that this game is poo, and that this game is really not that great. And as a lot of people have mentioned, if it wasn't for the brotherhood and the fun that we all have playing amongst the brothers, then I mean, a lot of us probably wouldn't play it as much. I mean, this 2K is not great. Not great at all. Thanks, Ronnie. But other than that, let's have fun with it, man. Let's have fun with it, guys. I look forward to seeing. I really want to do this on Zoom. I'm hoping that the administration can make this happen. Let's do it on Zoom. Let's let Watch Your Narrative host you guys here, and and let's get fitted, man. Let's get these draft fits, man. Let's get these draft fits. I want to see which. Let's pull these championship rings out. I'm gonna have mine on. Yes, sir. Yep. Going right. Got mine. So, but seriously, guys, looking forward to the draft. As I mentioned before, to the captains, stay along, stay wrong, and may the best team win. Watch your narrative, man. We're out.